They told you that silence makes you small, that if you don't fill the air, you'll disappear, that power belongs to the loudest voice in the room. Carl Jung saw the opposite. He saw that silence is not emptiness, it's pressure. It bends the conversation, it tilts the room, it makes people reveal themselves. The person who can stand still while others scramble doesn't lose ground. He moves the ground. Silence is not polite. It's surgical. It is the scalpel that exposes nerves without ever drawing visible blood. And Jung knew why it works. Because the unconscious hates a vacuum. Leave a human mind inside quiet long enough, and it begins to project. Fears expand. Desires leak. Stories rush in to occupy the space. Silence forces the truth to look for some place to land. Watch any negotiation. Someone tosses a number across the table. Most people can't hold the quiet. They rush to justify, to soften, to explain. They talk themselves down. The one who refuses to rush, who lets the silence grow heavy, that person becomes the gravitational center. The other side will start adjusting their position, and they'll call it fairness. But what really moved them was the pressure of your stillness. Jung saw the same thing in the consulting room. He didn't weaponize silence to be cruel. He understood that when the noise stops, the unconscious begins. Dreams step forward. Patterns surface. The shadow rises to speak. Silence gives the psyche a mirror, and the image is rarely polite. People fear silence not because it is empty, but because it is accurate. It reflects what is actually there. This is the paradox. He who speaks least often learns the most. He who listens deeply directs without appearing to direct. He becomes unreadable, which is another word for untouchable. And this is where it flips. We pretend that words are how we control the story. Jung would tell you that's backwards. Words are often the camouflage. Silence is the terrain on which the story is forced to reveal itself. Think about the persona, the social mask Jung described. It smiles, it explains, it performs competence, it wants applause. But masks are hard to hold inside stillness. They itch, they heat. The longer the quiet lasts, the heavier the mask becomes. People begin to fidget, then to fill the void with nervous monologue, then to confess things they never planned to say. The persona tries to keep the stage light on. The shadow prefers the dark. Silence is where the two collide. If you can tolerate that collision, yours and theirs, you will see more than most people see in a lifetime. But we've been trained to run from it. We sprint toward noise because it feels like proof of life. We open another tab, send another message, narrate another opinion. Noise feels like control. Jung knew better. Noise is often anesthesia. Here is the first hard truth. If you cannot hold silence with others, you cannot hold silence with yourself. If you cannot hold silence with yourself, your shadow drives the car, and you'll call the destination fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. People quote Jung here like a mantra, and then drown it in chatter. They forget the mechanism. The way to make the unconscious conscious is not endless talk. It is the kind of attention that silence makes possible. Cold, steady, unblinking. Try this. Let someone tell their story and refuse to interrupt. Do not perform empathy with filler noises. Do not nod so aggressively you become a metronome. Just listen. Within 60 seconds, they will tell you who they are afraid to be. Within 90 seconds, they will tell you who they are afraid to become. They won't notice they told you. They will feel heard, and you will walk away with a detailed map of their complexes, the emotional knots that bind behavior to old pain. Silence is not passive. It is diagnostic. It's a stethoscope for the psyche. You're listening for pressure, not sound. And this is where it changes again. Silence is not only a way to read others. It is a way to rewrite yourself. Jung retreated to Bollingen. a tower of stone where he carved and built with his hands. Not to escape the world, but to hear the deeper one. Solitude was not a luxury. It was a laboratory. Inside long stretches of quiet, symbols surfaced. Images that carried more truth than paragraphs. He called them archetypes, ancient patterns that move inside us whether we approve or not. The king and the outcast, the trickster and the lover, the warrior and the healer. Why does this matter? Because if you don't know which archetype is driving you in a moment, someone else will, and they will drive you with it. If your king is starved of silence, you will chase status performances and call it leadership. If your lover is starved of silence, you will confuse attention for intimacy. If your warrior is starved of silence, you will fight every small battle to avoid the one that matters. The archetypes are loudest when your life is quiet. They are quietest when your life is loud. Silence is how you learn the difference between your persona's image and your psyche's intention, between what you perform and what you are, between applause and alignment. You want power? Power begins where reactivity ends. Silence is the end of reactivity. In the boardroom, the person who reacts first trades position for relief. In a relationship, the person who explains first trades boundaries for belonging. Online, the person who claps back first trades sovereignty for spectacle. The moment you cannot hold silence, someone else holds you. So you practice. Not a meditative glow for its own sake. Not spiritual theater. You practice because you want to be dangerous in a different way. You practice because the quiet mind does not flinch when provoked. Here's a quiet technology Jung would appreciate. Design your pause. Make the pause a ritual so dependable it becomes a reflex. Breathe once before you speak in conflict. Twice before you answer a question you don't have to answer. 3 times before you disclose anything that can be used to move you. It's not superstition. It's somatic leverage. The body leads the psyche into stillness. The stillness leads the psyche into clarity. And this is what they don't expect. They think silence is absence. It is presence without performance. It is presence that doesn't beg. Presence that doesn't sell. Presence that watches the room tell on itself. Try it in small rooms first. At dinner, ask a clean question and then vanish into attention. At work, present your position and then let the meeting speak into your stillness. In an interview, answer once and stop. Count 7 in your mind. Watch the other person fill the air with their standards, their expectations, their fear of losing you. They will negotiate with themselves while you remain a fact. Notice what happens inside you as the silence stretches. The urge to nod, to soften, to rescue. That urge is not kindness. That urge is anxiety in costume. If you rescue people from silence, you also rescue them from telling you the truth. Jung's dark psychology is not cruelty. It is clarity about how the psyche behaves. It is the willingness to use human nature rather than complain about it. If silence reveals people, you don't have to expose them. You let them expose themselves. Silence is also boundary. A boundary is not an argument. It is a sentence and a silence. I won't be spoken to like that. Period. Then quiet. The next sound should be the other person deciding whether they can live with your line. If they can, the relationship continues with new geometry. If they cannot, they tell you fast, and the silence you held just saved you months of slow erosion. We have been sold a myth that strong people always use their voice. Strong people use the correct instrument. Sometimes it is a sentence. Sometimes it is silence that makes the sentence true. But you won't hold that silence if you don't know what you're defending. Jung called the process of growing into wholeness individuation, becoming who you are, not who you perform. Individuation requires conflict, not with the world first, but with your inner committee, the anxious child who wants to be liked, the hungry performer who wants to be seen, the tired cynic who wants to be safe. They will all protest when you stop over-explaining. They will all panic when you let silence do its work. Hold the line anyway, because here's the deeper move. Silence is not only a strategy in the outer world. Silence is the arena where you meet the figure Jung called the self, the ordering center that is more than ego. When you sit long enough that the persona runs out of tricks and the shadow runs out of complaints, there is a third presence that appears, the one that knows. It doesn't advertise, it organizes. From there, silence stops being something you perform. It becomes the atmosphere of your decisions. Now watch what happens to how you relate. The lover who tries to pull you into a storm discovers the storm won't take you. The critic who tries to hook you with jabs finds no purchase. The boss who tests your nerves discovers your nerves are not currency. Your quiet doesn't punish, it calibrates the field. This is the part textbooks never say. Silence is not passive aggression when you've already spoken once. It is disciplined self-respect. Passive aggression hides judgment and withholds love. Quiet command withholds only your reactivity. It's not a pout, it's a policy. And this is where it changes one more time. Silence can be misused. The persona can wear quiet like a mask of superiority. The shadow can sulk and call it boundaries. That's not Jung's dark psychology. That's smallness in disguise. How do you tell the difference? Simple. Real silence opens the room. Weaponized sulking closes it. Real silence increases information. Fake silence punishes disclosure. Real silence stabilizes your spine. Fake silence locks your jaw. The correction is simple and difficult. Keep the heart open while the mouth is closed. You don't freeze the room, you warm it with attention. You don't force confessions. You invite them by being a place where truths don't bounce off armor. This is why Jung said we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Silence makes that possible. It is light without spotlight. So build your capacity. Start with 1 minute a day where you let no one and nothing call your name. Not your phone, not your thoughts. Then move it to 3, to 5, to 10. Let the mind do its protest dance and don't follow it. Let the shadow bring you a scene you don't want to watch, and don't flinch. The scene will change when it realizes you're not trying to change it. That is the alchemy. The energy behind the images metabolizes when you stop interrupting it with noise. Silence is not the absence of strategy. It is the origin of strategy. The room thinks the meeting started when the agenda began. You know it began the moment you walked in and said nothing. The argument thinks it started when the first accusation fell. You know it began when your heart rate steadied and you decided not to be moved. The negotiation thinks it started when the offer hit the table. You know it began when you decided the value of your time before a word was spoken. Silence is how you keep those decisions intact. And if anyone tells you that quiet is weakness, let them keep thinking that. Let them perform, confess, plead, negotiate with themselves. Your silence will be called arrogance by the insecure and sanctuary by the truthful. Both are mirrors. Neither is your master. You don't need to announce that silence is power. You will feel it the way a mountain feels its own weight, and the room will tilt accordingly. There's a story that repeats itself in every office, every family, every city. Two people enter a room with the same facts. One leaves with the field. The difference isn't eloquence, it's nervous system. The loud one thinks power is volume. The quiet one knows power is voltage, stored, directed, released only when it counts. Jung would say you can feel a person's complexes before you can label them. You feel the control complex in the rush to explain. You feel the abandonment complex in the rush to please. You feel the humiliation complex in the jab that lands too fast. Silence is where you stop being dragged by their electricity and start measuring it. Start here. Do not answer the first version of any provocation. Wait for the second version, the one that reveals the need behind the noise. When a partner shouts, You never listen. Silence lets the second sentence arrive. I'm scared, I don't matter. When a manager says, this is unacceptable, silence lets the second sentence arrive. I'm worried how this reflects on me. The second sentence is the real negotiation. You cannot reach it if you're sprinting to defend your persona. This is why silence is not passivity. It is active hunting for the true signal. Now, let's take Jung's architecture deeper. Projection. The psyche disowns a piece of itself and sees it in the other. Transference. Old relational patterns migrate onto new figures. Countertransference. The other person's patterns recruit yours in reply. Noise accelerates all three. Silence slows them down, so you can watch them form in real time. When you hold silence, projection has to do more work to keep its costume on. It sweats. It slips. The blame that was aimed squarely at you begins to wobble and return to sender. Not because you argued well, but because you refused to audition for a role in someone else's old play. In the absence of your performance, the theater of their psyche has to keep running by itself. Most people can't bear to watch their own production. They will change the script to something truer if you don't interrupt the process with counter theater. This is dark psychology used cleanly. You don't force revelation. You remove interference. Now, turn the light inward. Silence isn't just for reading others. It's for not lying to yourself. Listen to the monologue in your head when you resist quiet. If I don't say this now, I'll lose the chance. If I don't post, I'll fall behind. If I don't explain, they'll misunderstand me. Jung would ask, who is the I that is so afraid? Persona? Shadow? A complex wearing your name? When you sit in stillness long enough, you will find the room inside you where decisions are made without panic. It's not numb, it's lucid. From there, 3 shifts unfold. First, your speech rate drops. Not because you're slow, but because you're exact. You stop paying the tax of nervous words. Every sentence is expensive. You spend it like capital. Second, your eye contact stabilizes. Not a predator's glare, not averted, simply steady. Most people will reveal 10 times more than they intend under steady attention. They'll talk to fill your quiet. They'll talk to win it. They'll talk to escape it. You let them. Third, your timing improves. Silence teaches rhythm better than any speaking coach. You begin to sense the moment when a question will topple a defense. You feel the second when an apology would be leadership and when it would be self-betrayal. You sense the precise breath when walking away will make the truth follow you. This is not magic. It is training. Training the same way Jung trained his attention, by staying curious longer than your anxiety can tolerate. Let's get brutally practical. In negotiations, say your number and stop. Let silence pull their real budget to the surface. If they counter too fast, wait 3 beats. The next thing they say will be closer to the truth. If they fill the air with reasons, let them. They are telling you exactly which lever moves them. Reputation, urgency, fear, politics. Pick the right lever, only after the silence has exposed it. In conflict, present your line without a sermon. I won't be spoken to like that. Quiet. If they escalate, you are seeing their relationship with their own shadow, not with you. Do not fix it. Hold the silence and watch whether they can regulate. People who can't regulate in silence can't regulate with your words either. Do not trade your peace for their storm. In leadership, ask one clear question and then stop. What will actually move this by Friday? Then let the table feel the weight of accountability without your rescue. If you gum the space with suggestions, you take the tension back into your body. If you hold it, the tension becomes productive pressure on the system. That pressure is what creates ownership. In love, when emotion surges, breathe and be quiet for 90 seconds. Most emotional surges are biological storms that peak and break in under 2 minutes when they aren't fed. If you speak inside the peak, you are talking to adrenaline. If you wait, you can speak to the person. In interviews, answer once. Stop. Let the silence invite them to reveal the next criterion out loud. They will often tell you how to win them while trying to fill the space you left. Every one of these moves rests on a single discipline. Do not confuse relief with progress. Talking gives relief. Silence often gives progress. Now, about ethics. Dark psychology sounds delicious until you realize it can become manipulation quickly. Jung would warn you, anything you do to others without doing it to yourself first will corrupt you. If you use silence to control, but refuse to use it to confront your own shadow, your quiet becomes a weapon with no wisdom. It will get you short-term wins and long-term drought. So you practice on yourself as seriously as you practice in rooms. 20 minutes with the phone in another room, a walk with no inputs. Write a question at the top of a page and do not let your hand move until your breathing slows. You will want to move. You will want to answer with old language. Wait. The first answer is almost always persona. The second is shadow. The third, if you hold the line, is closer to self. A strange thing happens when you do this for months. You begin to prefer quiet, not because you hate people, but because you love precision. You will say less and get more. You will post less and matter more. You will leave more rooms with your spine intact because you wasted no words that require retrieval. And something else happens. People start calling your silence mysterious. Let them. Mystery is simply the absence of your need to be decoded. When you don't rush to be understood, the right people take the time to understand you. The wrong people insist you explain yourself. Silence sorts them. Jung split from Freud in part because he would not let one theory fill the entire room. He made space for myth, for symbol, for dreams, forms of knowing that require quiet to be heard. You don't have to agree with the philosophy to respect the method. He held a silence around inherited ideas until the psyche itself began to speak differently. Use that method on the culture. Every day, you're offered 1,000 performances to join. Hustle, performative. Virtue, performative. Outrage, performative. If you step into the noise on its terms, the archetype of the mob devours your specificity. Hold still. Watch which invitations are trying to draft your nervous system into their momentum. Refuse most of them. Then choose 1 or 2 actions that matter and pour your voice into those like a laser, not a sprinkler. Silence is not retreat, it's reconnaissance. You scout the terrain, then you decide where to land your one clear blow. But what if they think I'm cold? Let them think. Let them project. If your silence is protective cynicism, time will expose it. If your silence is protective clarity, time will crown it. Here is the coldest move you will ever learn. When your boundary is clear, you do not need the other person to like your boundary. You state it once. You let silence do the rest. Their discomfort is not data about your value. It is data about their capacity. And this is where it gets beautifully simple. You don't need to master every Jungian term to wield this. You need 3 sentences and the courage to let them breathe. I'm not available for that. I need time before I answer. This is what I am willing to do. Say 1, then put your hands down. Do not decorate. Decoration is where you sell yourself at a discount. Your nervous system will want to bargain with the quiet. It will try to throw in a coupon code, but only if you're okay with that. But I hope that makes sense. But sorry for the inconvenience. Notice the coupons. Don't hand them out. The person who respects your line doesn't need them. The person who doesn't will ignore them. When the moment is right, silence can also be mercy. You don't always need the last word. Sometimes the last word is the one you never speak, the one that lets dignity remain where argument would have set the bridge on fire. Jungian strength is not domination, it's integration. Integrated people don't trample, they stand, quietly, unmoved, seen or not seen, but always substantive. And yes, there will be times to speak. When a lie is being dressed as truth, silence is complicity. When a boundary has been repeatedly crossed, silence is abdication. So how do you tell the difference? Listen to your body in the quiet. If the silence feels like avoidance, tight, buzzing, braced, it's likely persona playing safe. If the silence feels open, steady, clear, even if it aches, that is self holding the field. Speak from there or stay quiet from there, and you won't betray yourself either way. The longer you practice this, the more you'll notice the ultimate advantage. Silence flees you from the theater of proving. You stop chasing convincing. You stop auditioning for rooms that don't deserve your presence. You stop negotiating the non-negotiable. When others raise their voices, you lower your breathing. When others speed up, you slow your cadence. When others need to be seen, you make sure you can see. And in that rhythm, influence becomes strangely effortless. Not because you forced it, but because you created the one condition under which truth emerges. Space. People will say you're different. They'll call it aura, charisma, gravitas. Those are just names for a nervous system that refuses to be recruited by noise. So we end where we began, but with eyes open. Silence is not emptiness, it is architecture. It shapes outcomes. It reveals character, theirs and yours. It is Jung's bridge from persona to shadow to self. It is how you stop living at the mercy of what is loud and start living by the guidance of what is true. Do not announce your power. Stand in it. Let the room talk to you. Let the truth surface. Then, when you finally speak, let your words be the kind that do not require rescue. Power doesn't beg, it walks away. And when necessary, it walks away in silence.